Borley Rectory, one of the most haunted places in the UK and certainly classified as the most haunted place in England. It burnt down in 1939 due to mysterious circumstances, and the site remains empty to this day. No one has wanted to build upon it since. The village is tiny and it attracts a lot of unwanted attention, such as ourselves, I'm sure, of people fascinated to find out more about its haunted origins. However, the church itself does remain opposite, which is said to have carried on the haunted events. So that's BTP Liam here for our Halloween special 2013. We're on the site of Borley Church, across the way from Borley Rectory, which was probably the most haunted place in England and possibly one of the most haunted places in the UK. It is in Essex, on the Essex-Suffolk border, and there is many appearances of a haunted nun, poltergeist activity, writing on walls, and even violent attacks in the night from ghosts. It's a very haunted place, very well known, and we're here across the road from the now demolished rectory at the church, which is meant to have sort of taken on the hauntedness of the rectory that burnt down in the 1939 due to an unknown fire. We've got here with us today Simon Basham, who is he was, 27 years ago, he came to this very site with his friend on Halloween. He was 21 and they camped out in a tent here on the site of it, just on an impulse one night. His friend Ian rang him up and they thought they'd come and sleep here, and he had quite a mysterious night, and I think in the minute he was quite terrified about his experiences, so here he is.
Hello everybody, my name's Simon Basham and I'd like to tell you what happened to me 27 years ago. A friend of mine called Ian, who worked in London at the time, phoned me up and said, I've been reading about a place called Borley Rectory, why don't we take our tent and stay there the night? Bearing in mind we were quite young at the time and we thought, that sounded a good idea. So, on October the 31st, 27 years ago, we drove in Ian's car all the way up from Essex. It was a really cold, windy and rainy night. It really was a typical October day actually. We got here quite late, maybe about 11 o'clock at night, and everything was completely quiet. So we got our tent out from the car and we brought it around from the pathway, which you'll see soon, and we pitched our tent just about here. Okay, we got inside the tent and thought to ourselves, this is all a fuss over nothing, and we must have fallen asleep about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, not really sure of the time. Anyway, I've no idea what time it was, but I was awoken by the sight of an eerie kind of howling sort of sound coming from outside the tent. It could have been a fox or something, so I didn't think too much of it. But and then I started to hear sort of faint voices or murmurings, and what I was expecting was somebody to actually come to the tent and say, "Look, come on, you've got to pack up, guys. You know, need to be the vicar or somebody official." But the voices kind of died away, and then they came back. And bearing in mind, I was just sort of in the process of half waking up. Then I started to hear like a scraping sound down the side of the tent, like a. You probably can't hear that, so forget that. cut that one. A scraping sound down the side of the tent, and that is the first point where I really started to get a bit worried and a little bit scared. And then I heard the scraping sound again and some faint voices. It was all quite eerie. But I was still expecting somebody to sort of announce themselves or something. But it was still pouring a rain at the time. As I said, it was horrendous conditions, and you've got to think, well, who would be out at that time of the night? Anyway, I heard another scraping sound, and then it died away. And at this point, my heart was really beating fast. I woke up Ian, I said, Ian, there's something outside the tent, I can hear something. And he woke up, and again, we heard the scraping sound out of the side of the tent. And bearing in mind, it was so late, it was so dark, it was so horrible, and where we were, we just thought, we've got to get out of here. Obviously, it's 27 years ago, and I'm just trying to remember how scared we actually felt, because I had no shoes and socks on when I exited the tent, and Ian had no shirt on, and I was so scared because I'd heard the voices first. I didn't want to go first. So Ian came running out of the tent first, and I came running out as well, running fast. We turned, we came running out of the tent that was here, and Ian, my friend, was running first, and I was running behind him. And Ian just let out a really high-pitched scream, like somebody had been murdered or something. I've never heard a man scream like that in my life. And at the time, I just ran blind, and you can't see from here, but I ended up running into one of the bushes as we got to the car. And we got into the car, and we just went hacking down the road as fast as we could, driving madly as Ian was telling me what he'd seen. So as we'd got to about this point here, Ian had turned his head, and standing directly by this wall here were two expressionless figures dressed in white. One male, one female, no emotion on their face, nothing at all, just staring blankly at him. The fact they hadn't reacted when he come running out the tent or anything, and they just stood there motionless, was what frightened him so much. And to this day, we really don't know quite what Ian saw or exactly what we experienced. And that is the story of our trip to Borley Churchyard 27 years ago. In 1986. Okay, as I was saying, when we got into Ian's car that was parked outside, we drove probably 3 miles down the road, driving at 50, 60 mile an hour in sheer terror, and we found a parking space and we parked up, and that's where we kind of just put our seats back and discussed it, and kind of maybe slept for 1 or 2 hours until first light arrived, maybe about sort of 6 o'clock in the morning, when we thought we've got to go back and collect our tent and our stuff. So we drove back. The rain had stopped by then, but the wind was still very strong, and we parked outside again. We came into the churchyard. Everything was completely quiet. We went round to the corner. We collected the tent. We packed it all up. Nothing had been touched or disturbed in the tent, so clearly whatever it was we saw was not interested in our possessions. And we returned home. The tent we'd actually borrowed from a friend of ours, and it was actually a brand new tent that had only been used once. And when we returned it to our friend, he actually said to us, "What are all these weird red stains everywhere?" I'm not saying it was blood or anything like that, or being so cliche, but there were some unusual red stains all over it. And in fact, he did actually throw the tent away, and it was never used again after this incident. Okay,
that building there is down there. So basically it's just going to be around there. So it's the last thing that happens. At least you've got a little window. And it goes on to the original site at the end. Right, so we're around the front of the site. We're just further down the road before the main entrance. We've got this old gate we've come across here. You can see you've got these sort of hexagonal things here, and we've also got these same hexagon shapes up there. Might get a better picture from that one. Yeah, so, and these, they look, I don't know, but they look a bit sort of Art Deco or something, so it could be about 1920s or 30s, this gate, although we could be completely wrong, but if it is, then that would be built during the late Borley Manor, Borley Rectory.
And right, so the entrance where Nuns Walk is just here. This is sort of the original path, although it could have been resurfaced, but this is where it would have gone, down there onto the site of it, which is just in there. There is the site of it. See, it's not been built on. People wouldn't want that because they might get another haunted house. It's now called the Old Coach House.